Okay, so have you ever felt like this? You're just bombarded with like articles, books, podcasts, and it's like all this information just swirling around, but it's not actually making you any smarter. You just feel more anxious.
It's like you're at one of those like all-you-can-eat buffets. You stuff yourself, but you don't actually feel satisfied. You just end up with a stomach ache.
Exactly. You just feel kind of sick. And that's kind of where this whole second brain thing comes in. We're diving into Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain. And trust me, this is going to change how you think about knowledge, like learning, and even your own creativity.
Yeah, it's really about building a system outside of your head, right?
Yeah.
To capture, organize, and then actually use all that information that you're trying to swim through.
Yeah, so no more of that like, oh, I read that somewhere, but you can't for the life of you remember where or when.
Right, like imagine instead just having this like personal Google search
Yeah.
tailored to you, right?
Mhm.
That helps you remember and actually USE what you learn.
Okay, I'm sold. But I gotta ask, how does this whole second brain thing actually work? What is it?
Well, I think it starts with kind of understanding the problem. So, like, think about it. How much information are we consuming on a daily basis, right? Like, we have all these articles, podcasts, conversations with other people, and most of that just vanishes.
Poof, gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's gone. Forte calls this being stuck in a reactivity loop, right? We're constantly just being bombarded by information, but we're not really engaging with it deeply or like using it to create something new.
So we're just reacting to whatever's in front of our faces at any given moment.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we escape this loop? What's the antidote to this information overload?
Yeah, so I think the key is to become a lot more intentional about not only what we consume, but what we do with it. And that's where I think the second brain really comes into play. It's a system for capturing, organizing, distilling, and then expressing the knowledge that we resonate with.
Okay, I like that. Capture, organize, distill, express. I feel like we're turning raw data into a fine wine. I like it.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this process. How do we do it?
Yeah, so like it all starts by capturing those ideas that spark your curiosity.
Yeah.
So anything that resonates with you, just write it down. Don't overthink it. Don't judge yourself. Just capture anything that kind of grabs your attention.
So you're saying no more worrying about taking perfect notes, just get it down.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't about creating a massive archive of everything you've ever read.
Right.
This is about curating a collection of knowledge that is uniquely yours.
Okay, so I'm like diligently jotting down all these like brilliant insights. Then what? I don't want this to just end up like a digital junk drawer, right? How do I organize this information so I can actually find it later?
Yeah, I think that's where Forte's code method really comes in, right? Capture, organize, distill, express. So we covered capture. Now let's talk about organize. Forte suggests using a system called PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives.
Okay, PARA. Break it down for me. What makes it so special? Why this system?
So it's brilliant, really. It's all about organizing your information based on like actionability. So projects, these are like short-term efforts that have a clear goal. So let's say you're working on a presentation for work, right? That's a project.
That makes sense. What about areas?
Areas are more like your ongoing responsibilities. So it's like managing your finances, learning a new language. They're the things that you're consistently engaged with.
Gotcha. So resources would be anything related to those areas or
Right.
projects.
Yeah, exactly. So articles, books, websites, anything that you're using to deepen your knowledge. And then archives are for things that you're not actively working on but want to keep for future reference.
Okay. I like how this is laid out. This is making a lot of sense. So now imagine you need to give that presentation that we just talked about, right? Instead of like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just have like a folder called stuff and it's just like, oh my God, where is it?
Right.
But imagine if you had that project section where everything for that presentation is organized nice and neat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the organized part.
Yeah.
We still have Distill and Express to get through.
Okay, my mind is already blown. But speaking of mind-blowing, I have to ask you about the story of Nobel Prize winner Richard Feynman. What's his connection to the second brain?
Oh yeah, Feynman. He was like a master of connecting seemingly like unrelated ideas. And one of his secret weapons was something he called his 12 favorite problems.
12 favorite problems.
Yeah.
What is that, like a list hidden in his lab somewhere?
Not quite.
Yep.
But he would write down a list of open questions that fascinated him, problems that he was determined to solve. And then anytime that he encountered a new piece of information, he would kind of test it against those problems.
So it was like this mental filter for information. If it doesn't relate to these 12 problems, I can just let it go.
Yeah, exactly. So think about it. What are those nagging questions that you always ponder? The ones that you're just like, man, I wish I knew the answer to that. Right. Those are your favorite problems. And by writing them down and constantly kind of testing that new information against them, you might be surprised by the connections that you make.
You're giving your brain a treasure map. I love that. That's incredible. But let's be honest, sometimes my notes are a jumbled mess. So how do I make sure I'm like capturing the essence of what I'm learning? Because that's where distill comes in, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about Picasso's bull drawings. You remember those? He starts with like a really detailed representation, and then he gradually simplifies it down to a single elegant line.
I have seen those. And it's amazing how, with just a few strokes, he captures the essence of the bull. But how does that translate to, like, my messy notes?
Yeah, so I think it's about refining your notes down to their essence,
Yeah.
right? Like extracting those gold nuggets of insight. And Forte calls this progressive summarization, so you don't have to do it all at once. You can start by capturing the key excerpts, then go back and like bold the main points, and finally highlight the most important phrases or sentences.
So I'm creating a hierarchy within my notes.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that a lot. But what about express? That one always kind of trips me up because what if I don't feel ready to, like, share my ideas with the world?
Yeah, don't worry. It doesn't have to be this big grand performance or anything. Expressing your ideas can be as simple as, having a conversation with a friend or writing a blog post, even creating something just for yourself.
So express is about taking this organized, distilled knowledge and turning it into something tangible, something that could spark a new idea or maybe even help or inspire someone else.
Yeah, you got it. It's about closing the loop, turning information into action, and it can be incredibly rewarding. But I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty of Express, I think we should probably talk about how to overcome creative roadblocks because let's face it, we all hit those walls sometimes.
Oh, I have hit my fair share of walls. And if I'm being honest, it's usually when I have a deadline. So, what are some strategies for breaking through these creative barriers?
Yeah, so Forte talks about this dance between divergence and convergence.
Divergence and convergence. Okay, that sounds complicated.
No, it's a lot simpler than it sounds. So divergence is all about exploring possibilities, brainstorming, letting your mind kind of wander and go wherever it wants to go. Convergence is about focusing, refining, and bringing your ideas to life.
Okay, so it's like brainstorming versus editing. I can get behind that. But how does the second brain help with this?
So your second brain becomes this treasure chest of ideas that you can tap into whenever you are feeling stuck. So let's say you're writing a blog post and you hit a wall. You can go back through your notes, look for patterns, and see if any of your previous insights spark a new connection. It can be a game changer for overcoming writer's block.
That's brilliant. So instead of staring at a blank page, I can go to my second brain and see what gems I've already kind of uncovered.
Exactly.
It's like having a brainstorming partner on demand.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Your second brain can help you overcome creative roadblocks in all areas of your life.
This is already so much more than note taking. This is like we're building a superpower for your brain. But I have to ask, what about those times when you feel completely overwhelmed by a project? Like, how do you even begin with something so massive?
That's such a great question because Forte has a brilliant strategy for that. And it's all about breaking down these like daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks. He calls them intermediate packets.
Intermediate packets. Ooh, intriguing. Tell me more.
So think of those really big projects like climbing a huge mountain, right? It can feel like impossible if you just focus on reaching the peak. But if you like break it down into those smaller base camps, those your intermediate packets, then suddenly it feels a lot more manageable.
Okay, I like that analogy. So instead of freaking out about writing an entire book, you could focus on writing a single chapter or even just a few pages at a time.
Exactly. And each of those becomes an intermediate packet, right?
Yeah.
Like a building block for that bigger creation. And here's the cool part. These packets can be anything. They can be like blog posts, presentations, even just well-structured notes.
So it's like building a Lego masterpiece, one brick at a time.
Exactly.
Instead of staring at a blank page, I have this like collection of smaller pieces that I can like rearrange and play with until I see the bigger picture emerge.
You got it. And this approach can do wonders for tackling those big, scary projects that you might otherwise just avoid completely. Oh, and there's another benefit that Forte talks about getting feedback along the way. So instead of waiting until the entire project's done, you can share these packets with other people and get some really valuable feedback as you go.
Oh, that's such a good point. Because then you can do some course correction while you're still on that journey rather than realizing, oh, I've sailed way off course once you've already like reached your destination.
Precisely. It's about embracing a more iterative approach to creative work.
And speaking of creative powerhouses, Forte uses a great example from the world of filmmaking, Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather.
Wow, what a classic. I had no idea that he was, like, using second brain principles, way back when. So what did he do? So Coppola faced this, like, massive challenge of adapting Mario Puzo's novel into a film. So what he did was he created this thing called a prompt book. It was this physical binder where he very meticulously organized everything for the film.
So kind of like a pre-digital second brain. I
Exactly.
love it.
So he had excerpts from the novel.
Right.
Right. He had his own notes and sketches, photographs for visual inspiration.
Yeah.
It was like his whole creative universe contained in this binder.
I bet he kept that thing under lock and key.
He considered it like his most valuable tool.
Yeah.
Coppola said that he could have made the film just from that notebook. That's the power of externalizing your thinking.
It's like taking those thoughts that are swirling around in your head and giving them like physical form, a place where you can see them more clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this principle, right, this applies to anything. Writing a book, designing a product, planning a trip, anything.
It's kind of freeing, right, to think that you don't have to keep all those ideas bottled up in your head.
Yeah.
You can create a system to like capture, organize them, and then ultimately share them with the world.
And speaking of creative powerhouses, Forte also talks about Twyla Tharp, the legendary choreographer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've seen some of her work. Incredibly innovative stuff. So what's her secret?
Tharp has a very unique system for capturing and developing her ideas. A box.
A box, like a cardboard bag.
A cardboard box. She calls it her Joel box, after her longtime collaborator, Billy Joel. She fills it up with anything related to a project. Notes, sketches, photos, articles, anything that kind of sparks her imagination.
So it's literally a physical manifestation of her creative process. Yeah.
All contained in this box.
Exactly. And I think the act of putting those items in the box helps make those ideas more real, more tangible.
It's like giving those abstract thoughts like a place to live.
Right. And it reminds us that creativity isn't like this magical phenomenon, right? It's a process of gathering, organizing, and refining information. Sometimes the simplest tools can be the most effective.
I love that. And it's so inspiring to see how these creative giants, Coppola and Tharp, they use these principles before second brain was even like a thing. It shows that this is more than just a productivity hack, right? It's a really powerful framework for unleashing creativity.
And it's not just for those big, ambitious projects. Forte emphasizes that a second brain can be just as helpful for everyday tasks and challenges. So this isn't just for like artists and entrepreneurs, right? It's for anyone who wants to be more organized, more productive, more creative in their daily life.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about creating a system that supports your curiosity, your creativity, your personal growth, all of it.
Okay, so let's get practical, right? What are some like concrete steps that our listeners can take if they want to start building their own second brain, like today?
So I think one of the most important steps is choosing the right tools.
We talked about like the code method and pair array, but let's talk about the nuts and bolts. What can people actually use to build this second brain?
So Forte really recommends using a digital note-taking app as that kind of central hub.
So not just like the basic notes app on my phone.
So those are great as a starting point, but dedicated apps are specifically designed for personal knowledge management.
Okay, so give me some examples. What are some of the popular options out there?
Some of the popular ones are Evernote, Notion, Obsidian, and Roam Research.
Okay, so let's say I've downloaded one of those. What features should I be looking for? Like, what makes a good second brain app?
So I think the most important features would be multimedia support, flexibility, searchability, and the ability to like connect notes to each other.
Okay, so multimedia support, does that mean that I can store more than just text? Like images, audio recordings, web links, can I throw it all in there?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And that flexibility to organize your notes in a way that makes sense to you, whether it's through like folders or tags or maybe something a little bit more freeform.
And then, of course, being able to easily search through everything, right? So I can find what I need when I need it.
Exactly, yeah. And ideally, that app should allow you to link those notes together, creating a network of interconnected ideas.
And that's where things get really interesting, because it's no longer just a collection of notes. It's like this living, breathing ecosystem of knowledge.
Precisely. And as your second brain grows, those connections will become super valuable because you'll start to see patterns and insights that you might have otherwise missed.
Okay, you're making me want to open up one of these apps right now. But before we do that, any final words of wisdom for listeners who are maybe a little bit nervous to take the plunge and start building their second brain?
I would say start small. Don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Choose one area of your life where you want to be more organized or creative, and then start capturing those ideas and insights.
Great advice. It's about building those habits,
Yeah.
right? Like one step at a time.
Exactly.
And remember, it's a journey. Your second brain, it will grow and evolve as you do.
Exactly. And here's the best part. You don't have to go it alone. There's a whole community of second brain enthusiasts out there
That's right.
sharing tips, tools, inspiration, all of that.
Absolutely. It's a movement, really, changing how people think about knowledge and creativity and productivity, and we are thrilled to be a part of it.
Me too.
Speaking of community, you know our listeners are a big part of that. We would love to hear from you. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to like managing information or expressing your ideas? What tools or strategies have you found helpful? Hit us up on social media handle and share your thoughts.
Yes. Let's chat. We're all in this together, and I think we can learn a lot from each other.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of second brains, I want to bring up another important aspect that Forte talks about: tacit knowledge.
Ah, yes. Tacit knowledge. Such a cool concept. So, what is tacit knowledge?
So it's that knowledge that's hard to put into words. It's that stuff we just kind of like, we know it intuitively, like from experience.
Yeah,
It's like, how do you explain to someone how to ride a bike? You just do it.
exactly. And Forte argues that this tacit knowledge, it's so valuable, especially in a world that's like increasingly driven by AI and algorithms.
It's like what makes us human. It's the stuff that like robots and computers can't replicate. It's that ability to draw on experience and intuition. But what I find so fascinating is how Forte links this to the second brain. He's saying that it can help us actually tap into that hidden well of tacit knowledge. So how does that work?
I think it's all about bringing those unconscious thoughts and processes to the surface, right? So by capturing your experiences, observations, even those like fleeting aha moments, in your second brain, you're making them tangible. You can look for patterns. You can connect the dots in a way that wouldn't be possible if those insights just stayed locked away in your mind.
So it's like you're turning on the lights in a room you didn't even know you had.
Exactly, yeah.
And suddenly, boom, you see all this potential. But, and I think this is really cool, it's not just about individual growth. It's about, like, imagine if we could share those insights with each other.
Exactly.
Those nuggets of tacit knowledge.
It's like we're all contributing to this collective pool of knowledge that's greater than all of us.
Yes.
Yes.
That's way more powerful than anything a computer could ever come up with. It's that human element, right? It adds a richness and a depth to our understanding.
Totally.
Something else that really struck me from the book was this idea that building a second brain, it's not just about remembering where you saved that PDF you were looking for. It can actually change the way that you think.
Yeah, it's a really profound point. It's not about just being more organized or getting things done faster. It's about actually changing your relationship with information, with your own creative process.
It's a different way of approaching problems.
Yeah.
And Forte talks about how a second brain can help you move from like a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. Can you elaborate on that a bit? What does he mean by that?
Yeah, so I think when we're constantly being bombarded with information, it's so easy to feel like you were always behind, like
Yeah.
you're never going to catch up.
Like you're always playing catch up.
Exactly. That's scarcity mindset.
Mm.
But when you have a second brain, that dynamic shifts because you start to see all of that information as this like valuable resource, something that you can capture, organize, use to your advantage.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel empowered. It's like you have this like secret weapon, this arsenal of knowledge that's like right there at your fingertips whenever you need it.
Precisely. And I think that sense of abundance, it just frees you to be more creative, to be more experimental, to be more confident in tackling those new challenges.
You're not so afraid to like take risks,
Yeah.
because you have this like safety net. You have this system to catch you, to capture the lessons learned and then turn them into something valuable.
Exactly. A second brain really encourages that kind of growth mindset where you see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation, It's so clear that building a second brain is so much more than just like, ooh, let me take better notes.
For sure.
It's about personal transformation. It's about unlocking your full potential.
And the best part is, it's a journey that is accessible to absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter what your profession is, your background, or even your goals. Anybody can benefit from having a system to manage their knowledge and unlock their creativity.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Like you can adapt it, you can
Yeah.
personalize it. It's a framework, but it's flexible.
And as you start to build your own, you'll be so amazed by those connections and those insights that just kind of pop up.
You're creating a map of your own mind, right?
Yeah.
This network of interconnected ideas, it's just waiting to be explored.
Di-
Well, this deep dive has been truly transformative. We explored the foundations of a second brain, the power of capturing the things that resonate with us, how important it is to organize for action, and that transformative potential of distilling and expressing our ideas. And we've even seen how those principles have been used by creative giants, but also how they can be applied by anyone to achieve incredible things.
And it's been incredible. And just like any good journey, it all starts with a single step.
That's right. And as always, the most important part is what happens next. What are you going to do with all of this new knowledge? How will you apply it to your own life? What will your second brain help you create?
The possibilities are endless.
So, dear listener, we really encourage you to take that first step. Start building your own second brain today, even if it's just like, jotting down a couple of notes. You might be surprised by where it leads you.
You just never know. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of second brain enthusiasts out there, ourselves included. We are ready to support you.
That's right. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
So come on, connect with us on social media handle. Let's keep this conversation going. We can't wait to hear about all of your second brain adventures. Until then, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep creating.